We're live. All right. So for those of you who haven't been with us for the last 3 minutes, it's because you have to actually hit the go live button on the YouTube stream. So actually, it looks like we just went live 5 seconds ago.
Adult supervision.
Adult supervision. For those of you who are finally here, I'm sorry you missed the first 5 minutes of this because it was amazing, right?
Obviously.
It was the best.
They're like, oh my God, this old guy over here. All right. I am here today and super excited about having Tammy Howell here from Louisville, Kentucky, and Jen Lewis, my fearless co-host. Say hello, guys.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, y'all.
Excellent. Hey, y'all. Please do me a favor. Please do me a favor if you if you can hear us okay, please let us know. Jen, give me a test 1, 2, 3, please.
Test 1, 2, 3.
And Tammy, you too, please.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Cool. Can you guys just in that chat box, please let me know you can hear us okay. Let me know who you are, where you're coming from, and just say hello. We would love for you to subscribe to this channel today. And I tell you what, don't subscribe yet if you're not already subscribing. Subscribe if you really enjoyed this episode today. All right. Do we have a deal there? Put the yes in that box over there. All right. Excellent. Okay. So Tammy is a high school senior photographer from Louisville, Kentucky. Does amazing work. She is here today to help to dissect some of her images. I asked her to come on, talk about some of her images. She's a little nervous about just being on camera in general. So I took a little arm twisting. So let's make sure we're a nice, friendly audience to her today. But I felt like talking about about imagery was the easiest way for any photographer, and she has some beautiful work. So I'm really excited about it. Tammy, before we begin, I would love to hear a little bit how you got into photography and a little bio about you.
Okay, sure. So I've been doing photography since 2006. I started mostly with weddings because that's what everybody did. I think that's really the only photography that I knew of. Before that, I was an engineer at GE Appliances. I'd gone to engineering school. And before that, I was actually an art major. So I've always had an interest in artistic things and technical things. So photography is really a blend of those things. So I feel like I have an artistic eye, and then things like lighting and equipment and numbers and calculations, all of that comes natural too. So I can just kind of blend that together to make my images.
Cool. And you know, Tammy and I talked yesterday, and as I get to know her, and I think what's interesting about, you know, Tammy's career is that she kind of was, coming from an art creative background, then went into something very technical background in engineering, did that for a little while, but her love was always in the creative field and being an artist. And now she's taken that technical side about her and has really put that into her work, which I think is always really interesting, because I feel like with photographers in general, I feel like there are kind of like two brains when it comes to photography. There are the super creative people who just kind of figure it out. And then there are the people who are definitely a little more analytical engineering type people who really, you know, concentrate on the exact preciseness of the images that they create. Both end up with can be very similar images, but I think your work kind of reflects that background a little bit. I'm assuming you agree with that, right?
Yes, I do agree. That's actually an area where I kind of I want to be able to throw some of that out and get a little bit more free and artistic. But I make it's so ingrained in me. You know, like I always short light. I always do this specific balance. It's sometimes hard to get away from that to get a little bit more freedom. But because I always go back to that, it has to be so technically right that I'd love to get a little bit more of some of that other side to kind of balance it. That's something I'm working on. It's hard.
So, and you make a good point. That is an interesting point in that, you know, I think people who are more on the creative side or whatever side of the brain that is are always looking to kind of be a little more technical, and you're doing the opposite. You are looking for a little more creativity and less of the analytical precision side. So anyway, Jen, are you still
Yes.
there? You're still here.
I'm just answering questions on the YouTube.
Oh,
And
okay.
Dad, what's up?
I'm just making sure you're still there.
Oh, yeah, I didn't go anywhere.
All right, so let's get right into it. I need to figure out how to share my screen with you, so I'm going to do that, and let's do that. All right, hang on a second. Let's do this. I need to present now my entire screen. I'm going to do this screen. I'm sharing that with you now. I need to transition this and my presentation. Oh, man, this is like splitting an atom over here. There. All right. Go to bridge. You guys still aren't seeing that. And we had this problem before. There we go. All right. Now if I do this, that's not working. Shit. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. This is the first time we're doing this way.
Well, Jen and I can maybe chat while you're doing that.
Yes, please, Jen.
Okay.
Ask some questions.
So I missed exactly. I guess he's trying to pull up some of your shots and everything. Tammy, tell me a little bit about the equipment that you use on a typical senior shoot.
Sure. I have kind of two different types of setups that I bring. So I do a lot of sports, not like action sports, but seniors who want pictures of their sports equipment at their say field or other location. I take more lights there. On a typical senior shoot, I'm only going to use maybe 2 or 3 lights, and then where I do more of like a magazine effect is what I promote it as. I'll do 4 or 5 lights. So most of my typical senior shots are 1 or 2 lights on just a regular session, just because we're traveling around and I keep things a little bit lighter. So I use all Godox lights. I get those from Michael Mowbray. He's great at service and answering any questions. So he's really helped me a lot get everything the way that I like it. So I've got some stuff with me. So I use great.
What happened?
Yeah, I held it by this and it like, yeah. So I use these AD600s. I have the non-TTL version.
Wait. I'm sorry. They can't see that. Sorry. Because I have my screen on now. Can you see?
Okay.
So I figured, I'm sorry to cut you off. So
No, it's okay.
Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, I can see it on the YouTube channel.
You should be able to see a bunch of your images in Bridge. Tammy?
Well, so I've always been able to see it from our software that we're doing the broadcast from. So I'm not looking at it on YouTube.
Yeah. Don't go on the YouTube.
Oh,
So
okay.
you can see.
Yeah.
You
Yes,
can see.
it.
I have an image of a woman in a gray parachute dress right now. You see that?
Yes.
I just need to know where you want me to start.
I mean, just any images that you want to go through. This is one of my favorites, and it's behind me as
let's
a
start
big
here.
wall print. Okay. So this is my daughter, Lindsay, and this was one of her senior pictures that we did in Florida on the jetties at Panama City Beach at St. Andrews Park, I think is what it was called. So, and I've got some behind the scenes pictures for some of the images that we're going to go through. So I have actually a before of this that Jason had, and it looks incredibly different.
Yeah, it's right here.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the before image.
Yeah. So this was a 2 light setup. So this was like right at sunset, but the sun was behind us. So I had an image for this great sunset picture with this parachute, but the sunset really didn't happen. So I knew I was going to drop in a sky when I shot this. So a lot of times I shoot for knowing what I'm going to do with it. I don't typically do a lot of Photoshop to my images. This is one where I did do quite a bit to it though. I have the one color parachute, and then whenever I use it, I just change the color in Photoshop. And a lot of times when I shoot the parachute, I just have people, fluff the dress and then run off. But since everybody was on the rocks, I had to Photoshop more people out of that. And then there's a person holding a light in the background. And So I had to take all of that out in post. And I had this was with 2 speed lights. So I use speed lights as well as larger lights.
Uh-huh.
A lot of times I use speed lights for portability, and then late in the evening they put out plenty of light where some of my larger lights are too powerful. So this was just a simple umbrella on a speed light as the main light and 1 speed light in the back. I usually will light this with 2 lights in the back, but since there was ocean there, that's kind of hard. So
you couldn't put the lights in the ocean.
Yeah, couldn't really put the lights in the ocean. It was hard enough to do this as it was. So
right.
I did drop in a sky. I think I even changed out a panel in the front from another. If you want to go back to the finished image,
yes.
Because I didn't really like the way that front is, so I pulled that from another shot and blended all that in. And then I used probably 2 or 3 different skies as an overlay to get that final image.
Wow. So yeah, so what I'm seeing here is you have an overlay for the sky in the background. Your lighting is coming from this person on the left, or right behind. Well, actually, it looks like you have 1 light coming from the right, and then 1 coming from the back.
Yes.
Right.
The main light is camera right, and then that rim light. And I usually position a light that's going to be in my shot that I plan to take out later in a place that I'm going to put the sun. So you can see here with the sky that I overlaid, it's coming from the same direction as the sun in the sky. So it makes sense. And most people don't realize that that's a Photoshop sky, other than the fact that it looks really cool.
Yeah.
It looks believable because I shot it in a way that I could overlay a sky and make it still look real.
So that's great advice, to put where you think the sun's going to be, because you are looking and you can see your strobe is right here, and that's exactly where your sun is poking out on the sunset in the background. That's a great lighting tip. I never thought about that before. Cool. All right.
That next one there is a similar concept so I love this photo. It was one I had in mind. I wanted to do the baseballs in the foreground and something with him squatting, and I'd never been to the field, so part of it I can plan part of it, but then some of it I just have to kind of feel. So there were those lights in the background on the stadium. That's actually the lights for the baseball field, but they were not on. So I positioned my lights. I had 2 AD600s on very tall light stands where those lights are, and so I positioned them where the lights already were in the stadium.
Oh, I see. Let's go.
And then took out the light stand, and then the people holding them, because they were very tall. They were really tall lights, and in case they were to fall over. So I did have to Photoshop those people out and the lights, but then the light source, then I just added in Photoshop some fake flare and made it look like stadium lights instead of just my main light. It would have been fine. It looked good straight out of the camera, which I don't have one of those handy, but it really kind of finished it off when I added a little bit more flare and made it look like stadium lights. So I had those 2 lights in the background and then 1 main light
in the front. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I when I saw this image, I was curious if you were using some lights in the background, because you can see that highlight right on there, coming from behind on the back of his chin there and his neck.
Yes.
And it makes a big difference of really making him pop out, and then having that light in the front.
Yes.
Is great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it really does make a big difference to have those lights from behind, giving them that definition and separation from the background. And I try to have some sort of light coming from behind on every image, whether it's natural light or one of my lights. So when I'm shooting just a regular senior session, I can often use just 1 light if it's bright behind them or if there's sunlight. But if there's not, I'll usually add in a light to give them some rim light, make it look more sunny.
Now, is this a real sunset or not a real sunset?
In the sky there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So I believe the color was real, and then the sky with the clouds kind of over there on the right. Actually, the sky to my right looked better. So I just turned from that same spot. I just turned 90 degrees, took a picture of that sky, and then brought that in and overlaid it. So there was no texture in that sky at all. There was a little bit of that color that you see on that bottom left. And then I just overlaid the sky from the same night at the same time, but just a different part of the sky to give it a little bit of texture. I didn't want anything real elaborate.
Right.
I didn't want it solid blue.
Cool. All right.
So usually when I do that, I blur it a little bit too. So I bring it in and then kind of blur the edges of the clouds.
Okay. Jen, I'm going to let you moderate the comments because I can't see them at all.
Yeah, I got you.
I've got this weird F2 thing that I can't get off my screen here for some reason. So it looks like somebody's playing with me today. All right. Anyway. Okay. So let's go back to, let's see. I want to see if I could find one of these. So Tammy sent me a bunch of images that,
and they're not in order, so I can tell you which ones that, like,
I'm looking for one with more of the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That you have at the same time. Let's see.
So that one.
Actually, let's just go through them. Sorry. Let's go back to this one.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Sorry.
Right. Okay. And I do have a behind the scenes of this one on my website. I didn't know where it was on my computer, but so this one I shot with one light, and I used an AD 200 that I got for you can't see me right now, right?
No.
Okay. So I've got it here if you wanted to.
Wait, I can show you what it looks like. All right, hang on. I have to figure out how to do that. You were challenging me today, Tammy.
Sorry. I like to make things difficult. That's just how I roll.
Where is that window? Oh, here you are. There you are. Okay. Welcome back.
Okay. Yes, here I am. Okay. So here is it's my AD 200, but it's on a bracket. So that allows me to mount it on my light stand. This is a sleeve that I got from Amazon. So I get my lights from Michael Mowbray for the Mo lights, and then they're all Godox lights, but that's his company that sells them. And I got this sleeve. It's really come in handy because I've dropped this several times, and it adds a little bit of cushion. And then I also kind of hacked it where I cut a little bit of it off and wrapped it around this so that if it comes loose, it doesn't fall to the ground. So
right.
I can give more detail on that later, but
I need to. I need to see this whole setup here again. Can you hold it up?
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And I can't. Let me click on me so I can see myself good because I can. All right. So I can see what I'm showing you guys. Okay. So this is a silicone sleeve that I got from Amazon.
Okay.
Okay. So
yes.
the way this goes together is this slides into this bracket. Okay, so this is a bracket.
Okay.
And what I kept doing is because I didn't want to over tighten stuff because I was worried about over tightening it, and sometimes I didn't tighten it enough and it would fall out. And I also have other people helping me sometimes, and sometimes it's parents and they don't really know what they're doing and they're not careful with it.
Right.
And so I just trimmed off the part of this sleeve and then wrapped it around here, and that has saved me a couple of times. I noticed it hanging by that. So there's probably other ways to modify it to be a little bit more secure, but that has helped me a couple of times. Because Michael's had to fix my panel before, so I didn't want him to have to do that again.
So the purpose of that sleeve is to just make sure everything stays on.
The purpose of the sleeve is a little bit of protection when it hits the ground, but I made it so that it would stay attached to my light stand more as like a little secondary bit of protection there. But anyway, this is the light that I used on that shot. It was marginally enough power, so you can go back to that. You can go back to the screen if you want to show the image. I was working without an assistant when I shot that, and I was a little worried about having any kind of heavy light. I would have actually preferred to have my AD 600 with more power to really overpower the sky a little bit more. I did have to drop in a sky on that one because it was a very clear day, And we have the screen back up.
Yes.
Okay, because let's see if I can get it. Okay, I got it. Yeah, so it was a clear day, and again, my vision was to have some texture in the sky, so I did overlay the sky. So the sun is actually where you see that flare right there, and then I had my AD200 with a very small beauty dish on the front of it. It's maybe like a 12-inch beauty dish with someone holding that, and then I was on the left on my belly, hanging on for dear life. To get that shot.
All right, wait. So wait a second. Okay, so I need to understand how you got this image a little bit better.
Okay.
All right. So this looks like a wave.
Yes. Yeah. It's a wave made by the boat. So I don't know if you've ever seen this before. I'd never seen it. So the boat makes this wave.
Okay.
And then
they
the boat surf moving? The wave. The boat is moving.
The boat is moving, and
you're on the boat. I'm on the boat.
Ah, yes. Okay, that's helpful.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're capturing this from the wake of the boat. Okay, I'm understanding this a little bit better now. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I was on my belly, kind of hanging off the end of the boat, and then the dad was hanging onto my legs, so I wouldn't go into the water, and then I had my camera tethered just in case something.
And somebody's holding the light out over the water, because
someone else is holding the light out over to the right.
It's fantastic.
I tried to get him to put his face toward the camera.
Okay.
That, to this day, still disturbs me that I've got that shadow over his face.
Oh no, but, I don't think so at all.
The instructions were to turn your face toward that light, but that's okay. It still looked good. So I would have preferred, like I said, a little bit more power, because I did have to lighten him a tad bit, and I did have to darken the sky a little bit, because I had my 200 on full power, and it was enough, but it wasn't what I would have preferred.
Gotcha. So, and one of the things that I really love is the fact that, if you look at it closely enough, all those water droplets that are kind of frozen in the air, in the way that, all of this is, you're shooting at a high enough shutter speed to stop all of this action. Mm-hmm. It's really, and it's such a unique perspective to be coming from below him, shooting up into the surfboard, is such a neat, and you're also tilted. So like, there's so much to look at here from a framing perspective. If you guys look the way like, it just, from a framing perspective, your eye starts on the left, goes all the way up around his body, around into the surfboard, and then it catches you on that wake behind him, and around, now you're into the sunset, around to the trees, and then back around. It's a really great composition, and it's one of those things that you want to dissect when you're looking at creating better imagery. This is a perfect example of that, and I hope that you entered some of this in competitions, because this is a stunning image.
Yeah, I don't really enter competitions much, so
you need to start.
I just don't really do that often.
Yes. Jeff O'Connell has a couple of questions for you. He wants to know what f-stop was used for this, and how many tries to get the exposure correct.
I would have to look up what my aperture was, because it's been a while, so I do not remember what that was.
Any guesses as to what you
it would have not been wide open. I would have probably been, I'm guessing, around like f8, I'm not really sure, honestly. I'd have to look it up, because the way I do it is I'm first exposing for the sky and the surrounding. So I'm gonna set that at the aperture and shutter speed, so it would be a pretty high shutter speed to catch that motion, and then enough depth of field that I didn't want to have to worry about him being out of focus. So I'm sure it was high enough. I would say at least f8, because I wasn't really sure how well I was going to be able to focus. I was pleasantly surprised at how many of these things were in focus. So once I got that set, the exposure was pretty easy. It stayed pretty consistent, because he stayed the same distance from the boat from me, pretty much. So that didn't vary. It really didn't vary. The kind of trick was to do all of this and still guide the driver to get in the position where I wanted the sun. So that was where a lot of it came was okay, make sure we're heading this direction, and then not hitting other boats. That's ideal also. So yeah. Right.
So lean over boat, don't hit other boats, shoot at a fast shutter speed.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. And then the person holding the light, it was the person that owned the boat. So they didn't know anything. I was just like, take this and point it at his face, and that's all you have to do, and don't let it fall in the water. So that was the main reason. I had my 600 with me, but I was a little anxious
Seems
about
like a lot of
putting
weight
it out over top of the water, and with someone who wasn't familiar with my equipment. So if I had to do over again, I would have used the higher power light and made sure I had someone that could really hold on to it for me. But I didn't know what to expect. I'd never even heard of this sport before. The mom, I had done her daughter's senior portraits, and she messaged me about this and was like, "Are you in?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I have no idea what you're talking about, but it sounds great." So,
but I'm in.
So I didn't know what to expect. I didn't even know that this was a thing.
Right.
Yeah, I did one like this not too long after you did this one, and one of my kids wanted one of her surfing off the back of the boat. And the thing I was really jealous of with yours is my clients, I don't know, this sounds silly, but like their boat was too big, so I couldn't get down. They had a huge boat.
Oh, yeah, that makes a big difference. Yeah.
I wanted to shoot up. So, and I had Noah with me, who my 17-year-old who assists me on all my shoots. And so he had the 600, and I had an 8600 with the Mothro on it. And so, which is a long throw reflector for those of you guys who don't know. And so, that worked out well, but I just couldn't get low enough. So I was hanging off. I kept scooting closer to the edge and hanging down lower off the back of the boat, trying to get as low as I could. And I think I made her mom panic a little bit, but it's
yeah.
But that's an awesome shot, though. I always love that one.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right. So, and I see that people are commenting here. This is great today. Thank you so much for leaving your comments and questions. Keep them coming. Let's go back. Ready for the next one, Tammy?
Sure. Which one do you want to go over? You want to do one that has a behind the scenes, or does it matter?
Let's take a look. So you should be able to see me now. I have a behind the scenes of you. Looks like you're wearing a knee brace.
Yeah. Oh, I'm always in some kind of brace. Story of my life. Yeah. So I do have a picture. So this would have been me testing. I actually ended up shooting him from the other side, and I probably have a picture of that somewhere. But I've got an action shot. I should have one in there of him actually doing the pole vaulting. I ended up on the other side to get the angle that I wanted.
Here it is.
Yes. So I actually ended up shifting to the other side to get
so
the angle that I wanted.
Okay, so you are, okay. So this is your final shot.
Mm-hmm.
And this looks like where you were at.
So we ended up, so that's the light that I used. I had it on the other side, so we swapped, but that's the light. And what I did is so that's one of my Molite Octoboxes. I had taken out the front panel to get a little bit more power, because I really, my vision for this was a really dark, dramatic shot, and I needed just a little bit more oomph out of my light. So took that front diffusion panel off to get a little bit extra. So the light, of course, we put it on the other side when I switched to the side, and then I have another 600 behind him, and you can see that in I think I didn't even Photoshop it out in the final image.
You can see it right there.
You see it right there?
Yeah.
So I think I just kind of left it there as a little nugget to be like, yeah, see, there's my light way back there. And it was just enough. You can see that it still reached him from all the way back there. You can see a little bit of a highlight around him. And it was just enough separation. I probably could have brought it a little closer. But, at this point, we were running out of
daylight,
and I still had several things to do. And I was pretty happy with it. I didn't want to, this was not an easy shot to get for the timing, and
I can't imagine. Yeah, I mean, and again, I see that you're putting the light where the sunset is going. Mm-hmm. So there's that cool trick that you've taught us today. So I'm curious, what is I mean, this is obviously not the typical high school senior portrait, that's a football player, soccer player, from an athlete perspective. Do you mean to get permission to do this shot? The coaches are very, friendly about it, or, is this something, is there any advice you could offer as far as that's concerned?
So, so I've never had, I'll leave it to the client to get permission, get access to the field, because they usually have the connections. And
Right.
I've never had a kid say, my coach isn't cooperating or the AD isn't cooperating. They're usually more than willing to help us out. Sometimes the kids don't even have their uniforms because it's a different season. So, but I shot 2 this week. I did a cheerleader at one school, and I did a kid that does lacrosse and football at a different school. And both times they were willing to go and open up the facilities for us to get it done. So.
Okay. So, but I mean, but more or less, it's really just about planning, right? Making sure that you have things together.
Yes. We plan. They get permission ahead of time.
Okay.
To make sure that, because most of them would be locked up, and especially like this, we had to get make sure we had the poles and stuff like that. So.
Okay. All right, let's go back to let's find another image. I hope you guys are enjoying this. I know I am. All right, let's see. So we have another behind the scenes.
So we can do this one if you want. This is one of my favorite images that I've shot lately. So that's the behind the scenes. This is one light. But when I saw those trees, this is my friend Kim's, where she lives, and she's the one that is Kimberly Malone. She's taken most of these behind the scenes pictures that you see. So thanks to her for those. And so when I saw these trees, I was like, we have to do something cool with this. I don't really know what, but we have to do something with some trees in the foreground and trees in the background. And then that sun coming through the leaves was really beautiful. So I shot this with a parabolic umbrella called a PLM that has a very kind of distinct light pattern.
Yeah.
It's very, very narrow beam of light, but yet it's very soft. So I love my PLM. So this is the behind the scenes, and then we should have the final one somewhere if you wanted to pull that up.
Yeah.
And it was a really cute kid and a nice light. Just everything all kind of came together. So if you want to scroll
there,
down,
it is.
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah. Yeah.
You just put it next to it, which is right here. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
that all that light, that rim light on him is the actual sunlight. And
right.
And then see that without my light in the front, it would look more like what that behind the scenes picture is. But
so for what I'm seeing here, you're exposing for the highlight on top of his head there. That's your exposure, right?
Yes, the highlight
and that rim around him.
The greenery around him.
Right.
And then dialing in the correct power level for my light.
Right. And when I would teach off-camera lighting, this would always be a really good example of, how to nail, a scene in general, because you want to make sure that you're getting all that foliage behind there and that's not all blowing out back there, right? Mm-hmm. And your main light is that sunlight, which I'm sure is changing at sunset very rapidly, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to be moving and adjusting for that. And I think that's where the trick really comes in, is that, understanding, how you're going to capture an image like this, and the technical aspect to it, right? I need to create something that looks the same power as the sunlight that's coming behind him. And I'm going to first expose for the background, and then I'm going to bring it in with that PLM.
Yes.
Yeah. And are you using any gels or diffusers?
No,
to warm things
there's
up?
No diffusion. I sometimes will use a diffusion panel on the front of my PLM.
Okay.
But this particular time I did not.
It's just so warm on his face comparatively to the light. Is it's just balancing itself out, or are you doing anything on in camera?
And not to make it warm in camera, I probably just made it a little warmer with the white balance, just to give it that warm sunset feeling.
Okay. Yeah, that's a beautiful image.
Thank you.
And I like the way, again, going back to this, where you're using the trees to frame him around.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it here where you see those two trees. So again, you're creating a great image where it's coming up and around to the left and it's following him around. And, you know, I think that it's from in talking to you, it sounds like you're creating a lot of these great frames, and not necessarily realizing what a good job that you're doing.
Yeah,
Which
it's
is
funny.
wonderful.
I see in the rule of thirds when I go to crop images.
Okay.
A lot of times those Lightroom crops, they just land right on the lines in my photo. I see in the rule of thirds often also.
Okay.
So you'll probably see like where his knees are, where it transitions from the greenery to the ground there. There's a line there, and then there's a vertical line with the trees that's about a third of the way over there, and then one kind of a group behind him that's a third from the right. So I think that's how I kind of compose without really thinking about it.
Right. And everyone needs to find their tricks to do stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
Jen, any questions out there?
Yeah, questions have come in. Do you do any ambient shooting or all off-camera flash?
I do almost all the time off-camera flash. Every once in a while, I'll throw in some natural light. Even then, I'm typically using a reflector. Most of the time, if I do something natural light, it's a close-up where I have my client sitting and they're kind of looking up at me, up to the open sky, and just get a nice, real even, beautiful, flat light with their eyes really, sparkly from looking up. So I try to throw some of those in, but I very rarely meet a photo that I don't think would be better without some extra light. And sometimes I may not even be using it as a main light. So there is one on here. I don't have it behind the scenes, but it's the same kid. It's a horizontal, and he's got a lot of greenery around him. And I think I put that one in here to demonstrate that I used one light, but it was a kicker. It was not the main light. The sun was the main light on him. So if you want to pull that one up.
Yeah, actually, before we get there, I'm gonna pause because I know that you had some giveaways.
Oh yeah.
So we need to do that. I see that we have about, we've got a few people on here. You have a bunch of metal prints to give away?
Yes. Metal prints from Iris Pro Imaging. That's my local lab here. And that's where I get all of my metal prints, and those are really popular. So probably my best sellers as far as wall prints are those metals. And the metals lend themselves well to the type of photography that I do, with a high contrast, really punchy color. So they offered some metals to give away, 20 by 20 metal prints.
Okay, so we have a few to give away. For those of you who are listening, if your birthday is the closest to today, you could be our first winner. So whose birthday, who's listening out there, has a birthday that's close to today? Or is anyone's birthday today? Anyone? Well, has a birthday this month? Has a birthday next month? Anyone who has a birthday?
Jennifer Dunn was yesterday.
Jennifer Dunn was yesterday, even though she's not coming. Yes. So Jennifer, you could be our first winner. Congratulations. You get the 20. What?
She commented.
Oh, she did? Oh,
Yeah,
she just said yesterday. Okay. It came up late for me.
Again, adult supervision.
Wow. I got a lot of screens going on here. So Jennifer, you're our first winner. Our Noel, if you can be our second winner, if no one else is close or comments, you can be our second winner. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Tammy, tell us what they want again.
A 20 by 20 metal print from Iris Pro Imaging.
20 by 20 metal print from Iris Pro Imaging. And I think we have one more left to give away.
I think he said 5.
Oh, he said 5. Okay.
Yes.
Well, Rebecca
5.
has commented, and her birthday's in January, but early bird gets the worm. So we'll give her the we'll give her the other one. And I think we'll come
Should
back.
we let
And
the other two till the end?
we'll
Yeah.
leave the other two to the end. So congratulations, you guys.
Okay.
Those should be some nice metal prints that
Yay.
you've won. Thank you for participating today, and talking to us.
Question for you. Do you use ND filters on camera for bright days?
No, I do not. I use a high-speed sync on my Godox to allow me to shoot at higher shutter speeds. I do have an ND filter. I've tried to use it before. I found that I have a little bit more trouble focusing with that because, you know, the camera uses the light coming in to focus. And so I don't feel that I really need those.
Yeah. I can speak to having to use ND filters. They're definitely a great trick to have when you didn't have high speed sync. And thankfully, there's no reason to have to, unless you're, shooting in manual mode, there's no reason to do that. It's so much easier in TTL and high speed sync now, but that's one way to do it. But you're right. It gets really difficult, especially when you're shooting into the sun with an ND filter.
Yeah,
Man,
and I do a lot of shooting in places where the focus is a little bit of a struggle, and so that just adds a little complexity. And once I switched to the Godox with all the high speed sync capability, and I do shoot in manual. I don't use TTL at all, but that's been switching from Alien Bees to Godox has made a huge difference. I know they say light is light and it's not the equipment, but let me tell you, I can do a lot more with this versus when I had those Alien Bees lugging around my battery packs and the receivers and the batteries and everything that I have now. The battery's built in, the receiver's built in. You just turn it on and it works. And so I can just be like, oh, I wish I had a light here, and then I pick up the light, turn it on, and hand it to somebody. Boom. When I had my Alien Bees, it was not so easy. So that has really changed my lighting and my imagery, being able to get that and that better equipment.
Gosh.
More modern equipment. I mean, I still use the Bees in my studio.
And
after all these years, but
yeah. And I think in some cases light is light. You're absolutely right. And for, the standard studio portrait and stuff like that, pretty much light is light. But in these fast-paced, sun going down kind of environments, using this newer technology, and it's not newer, I sound like an old man when I say that, but like this newfangled technology, it really, and we're not talking about super expensive stuff here. We're talking about fairly priced stuff. Yes. If you want to make this kind of stuff, this is the kind of equipment you need to really get it done. I mean, Jen, you probably remember the days of like the suction cups with the radio poppers and all of that stuff. Tammy, I don't know if you remember that stuff. But...
Oh, I have a graveyard of radio poppers. I literally do. I mean, and I would kill those. Oh, and those batteries, those dumb little batteries that you can't buy anywhere. And
yes, to take a walk.
I mean,
back.
they were great at the time. It was great when I had them because it was the best at that time.
It was.
But gosh, it was frustrating.
And yeah, to take a walk back, it was like this thing that you put in front of the sensor on your flash, and it helped create a synced TTL. It was revolutionary. And then 2 years later, they put all that technology inside the flash instead of having to strap it on the front. Anyway, all right, let's move on.
Okay, I have another question.
Yeah.
Noelle wants to know, do you use a beauty dish ever, just the PLM?
I do not. No, I don't. They're a little heavy and clunky. I like the things that are going to fold down. So even my strip box, it folds down like an umbrella. So the octaboxes fold down, everything folds down. The beauty dishes to me are just a little bit extra. So
cool. All right, let's go back to presentation.
Okay.
There we go. And so right away you can see in Tammy's wrong screen. Tammy's image here. You can see, I guess that's your PLM on the right, or is that just a big umbrella?
Yes. So I have a PLM for the main light. And then I have an octabox and a strip box in the back for kickers. And there's no reason that I have one octabox and one strip box. It's just what I had. There's no no reason that one is one versus the other. And then also, if you look closely, you can see a speed light
Right here.
kind of in the middle there. Yes, and there's a fog machine right below that.
Oh, right here.
So
I gotcha.
there is a purple gel on the speed light. So that's the purpose of that that light right there.
Okay.
And then if we go to
the next nope.
final.
Let's find the final. I should have organized this. My apologies, guys. Oh, it's here.
It's yes.
There it is.
Yes. So that is the final image there.
Wow. Cool.
So that's a four lights right there.
Yep. 4 lights. She's showing you using 4 lights in that image.
Yeah, exactly. 4.
So let's go back to this image here. So you have here's your strip light over here. It's just a light in this case. It's giving you that edge right here on your image, right? And then going back, you have this light here, this speed light with a purple gel on it, right? And that's you can see that's right here, and it's giving us all this purple back here, right? And lighting up your fog.
Yes, and that was the main purpose, is to light up the fog, because it looks much better backlit.
Right. And then you've got another light that's giving you the rim, which is this right here. That's being created by this light with the grid. And definitely, I think I don't know if you, with or without the grid, I think you get a similar effect, but I think that, it just keeps the light from spilling all over the place down in here, right?
Yes.
So more than anything else, it's just about keeping that light from spilling down there. And then you have the PLM.
And it's easier to keep it from flaring into the camera too.
Right. And then you have that PLM over here, right above this pole, that's giving you your main light and a nice shadow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Any advice that you can offer as far as working with a fog machine? Do you have any issues with you're at a gymnastics place? Anything you do or do not tell them?
Yeah, I didn't bring it up at that particular place, but I mean, they were pretty cool with whatever there. I mean, there's a lot of stuff everywhere, powder and sweat, and I really don't think that the fog machine would be an issue. I don't take it with most places just because it has to plug in. I do use atmosphere aerosol for some of my shoots, and that works well. It's different than the fog machine, but it can often give me some kind of a nice glow. I don't know if I have any in that I sent you, where I did that. I have to look at the images, but
you have this one here.
That was atmosphere aerosol.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
I had my daughter back there spraying the fog, and then I had the same purple gel with I believe that was my AD 200 there behind her. And then we had I forget what modifier. It was probably the PLM with a diffusion panel in the front. If not, it was an Octavox. So a lot of times the Octavox is better when it's really windy. Those PLMs don't do well in the wind.
Right. So this image is shot outside, and I think, looking at this image
outside, yes,
it's much softer than a lot of the images that we've looked at so far. So definitely looks like you have some diffusion on that.
Yes,
to soften her face. And so this is just a regular soccer goal post?
Yes. We just it was daylight outside. I just killed the ambient with my camera settings to make it dark. And then I believe I have a reflector underneath her also.
Okay. Oh, okay. That would make sense.
So this one, the light would have been more above her. So this would have been a little bit of like a clamshell type setup here.
Right.
And those I do a little softer. So it's still dramatic, but I wanted a softer, pretty look.
Right.
In this one. So that's why I had the diffusion panel on, and then the reflector underneath.
Right. I mean, and this definitely has a much more feminine feel to it than some of the other images. All right. moving to the next image, I think that this is probably this one here.
Well, no, and I may have forgotten to put the one in that one is for. It's the same. It's the same guy, the same place, but I think I forgot to put in the image that was from. So,
Well,
sorry
let's just
that.
look. So, I mean, it's the same guy,
Yeah.
so you could see.
Yeah, and I think I might have a behind the scenes of the one of him on the ground too, though.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
not.
I'm not seeing it.
No. Okay. Yeah. So I didn't do very good on that one.
That's all right. But I think
But I
we
think
can show.
it was actually the same setup, same lights and everything.
Okay, yeah, that was my point. Is that I think you can see you're
Yeah.
using a big umbrella here, the grid, and seeing some patterns here, like how your lighting setups are. One raw
Yes,
light,
yes.
right?
Mhm.
One
Yes.
raw light, which is this one behind here, right?
Yeah,
And a
yeah.
grid light here, and you're just kind of moving those lights around to get the things that you want,
Yeah.
right?
That's actually on my homepage on my website. If you wanted to pull that up to see that image,
This one.
let's
come
the
back to
actual
it. I'm
image.
afraid I won't be able
Yeah.
to get back there.
Okay.
Let's go with this one here.
Okay. Yes. So that's basically the same exact setup there.
Okay.
Just the light was a lot lower. It was lower than even a light stand can go. So we had to tilt the light, I believe, to get that down. And then the back light is my light. So I try to often, just to give a little artistic flair, kind of peek that light into the frame a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So that's what I've done there, is that bare light without any modifier.
Right.
It's just kind of barely peeking in. So I do some with and some without, but that just gives it a little bit more interest, I think.
Well, and I think, when you're doing stuff like this, where you're bringing in this light over here to the top left, you're just moving it around till you get what you want, right? And
Yes,
getting
yes.
the desired
And a lot of
effect.
times I try to make it where the sun would be, so it looks like the sun.
Right.
But here we couldn't really do that because of the background. So
Right.
the sun is basically shining through the stadium, but that really couldn't happen. But most people aren't going to really go that far in
No, and I think
dissecting the photo.
And I think something that I've been seeing a lot of lately is these Lightroom presets where there's a sun flare being added, and it doesn't look anything like this.
Right.
So
right.
you're creating something that's very unique and different every single time that you do it, because it is really hard to make things, to duplicate an image like this every single time.
Yes.
This in the same way. So each one is unique, and just to point out here, like for me, it looks like you're creating an image where you want to accentuate him. He's an athlete. He looks like, he's worked very hard. He has a lot of muscles, and you want to accentuate that, that body that he has. And you're doing that by, a lot of harder light and, a pose that's going to put him in a position to, show off those muscles.
Yes. Yeah. And then the angle too. So I was on the ground shooting that. I was laying down on the ground
Right.
to get that angle.
And again,
that makes it more powerful.
Right.
Powerful pose shooting from below.
Right. And, just to go back to your lights over here, it looks like you have this one big light you're using. It's coming, I'm not sure where it's coming from. From the left?
Yes.
Yeah, from the left over here, and then you're adding the grid over here. Cool. All right, and all of this stuff, as we're showing the behind the scenes stuff, I think it's important to note she's doing all this with 3 to 4 lights. It's basically the same thing, and you can see how many different kinds of images that she's able to create with it. All right. Now we're moving on to something different.
Okay. All right.
Do
So
we want
this
to go
one,
or do we
we
want to?
can't actually. Let's do. Somebody asked a question about natural light, and I have an all natural light one. It's the kid in the blue hoodie right there.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is all natural light. I have a scrim. This was close to sunset, not totally sunset though. The sun was really low and it was still slightly harsh. So I used a scrim to soften that light on his face. And then there's a reflector underneath him. But this is all natural light. So that I do occasionally do a natural light photo if this scene calls for it.
Right. And yeah, obviously it did, and then you're just using a scrim to soften things up. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah. And then there was the one, so on the second to the bottom row, the second image, no, one to the left. So this is the one where the light coming from the left is the sunlight, and then I added a light from the back as a kicker.
Little kicker.
And you can even see on his face there's like the little like the lines from the water where the light's bouncing up. I don't know if you can see that closely, but the reflection from the water up on his chin.
Yes, I do. Yeah, it might be harder for the audience to see it, but and again, I just have to make the point here that there's a lot going on in this image as far as lines are concerned. But if you just kind of follow around, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but you just follow around her framing here. It's just on point. The string from the fishing line all the way down to the pole, around to his body, up with the little splash of color, just up above him to the right, brings you around and back down again because he's standing on that hill with a little tackle box there. And you're helping all of that. You couldn't have achieved such a great frame without accentuating him with that kicker light from behind. So
while I tried it without it and I didn't love it, and then it's a little. I would have preferred to have it turned out a tad bit, but it's okay.
Right, but I think at the same time, without doing that, really making him pop out of that background, you I don't know if you're stepping onto the technical part about it a little bit. Could be a little bit darker, right? But I don't think so.
Yes.
So it's a great image.
Thank you. All right. Any other ones you want to go through?
Any questions, Jen?
No more questions.
Okay. All right. Let's go to this one.
Sure. Okay. Yes. All right. So this one I used 3 lights. One of them was actually on the sign in the back. So there was one light on him for the main light. Then there was a light you can see that edge light on his left side of his face, our right side, camera right.
Yeah.
And then there was another light shining on the background. So you can see the light on the ground back behind him. You can kind of tell where I had the light by where that light's hitting the ground. So I had it like way far away from us, just lighting the sign.
Right. So again, just a couple of lights, accenting the things that need to be important, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Cool. All right.
All right. So this one I actually added a little bit of flare in post, but I did have it. There was a tiny bit of it coming from the light. So I had the light above her, angled down, and that got the light on her face, and then you can see it kind of lighting the edge of her arm. And then most likely had another light. I'm not really seeing it. I might have only used one light on this one. That would have been surprising, but no, I did have a second light. I had a second light. Yeah, you can tell on her arm. You can tell on her arms. There's a little bit of an edge glow on her arms. I don't see it on her foot as much. So I probably, I see it just a tiny bit on her foot, but mostly on her arms. And that was also a 2 light.
I think it's important to note, listening to Tammy talk about how, even looking at her own image, you can do this stuff on your own in, looking at other people's work to see how, they lit it themselves, and the instructions that, Tammy's showing us today, you can look for the edges of their face, where the light's coming from, how the light looks. These are great ways to help you, grow as a lighting person, as a photographer, in figuring out what you want in your own images. And when you're creating this additive process in your imagery, where you're building something in camera each time. Tammy, every image that she's doing is about building an image using light to create it, and then bringing it together with great framing, All right, here we go.
All right. So this one was two lights. One was behind him, and then we had one in front of him, camera right, kind of low, and then we actually had people throwing dirt to make that fog look. So that's dirt. So we had two people, like one on each side, toss dirt.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Are you using the lighting on his face for that helmet has that looks challenging. So talk to me about that.
It is hard. It's hard to do things with helmets, hats, where you have to get that light up underneath. So that's the trick, is to get the light low enough that you can get it up underneath and still light the eyes. So it's most of the time you have to kind of keep lowering it because I don't want to not be able to see the eyes clearly.
Right.
So so the trick is getting it up nice and close. That light would have been just outside the frame of the camera.
Okay. Because I mean, I can only imagine, glare on the helmet, trying to get it close enough.
Yeah. Well, you can see a little glare on the helmet there, but you can tell by the light fall off how close that light actually was to him, because there's not much light on his legs. It's right up on his face.
Right. So, just a good point to, the most important thing here is his eyes, right? Mm-hmm. He's got that giant helmet on and all that gear. Without getting those eyes, you don't have the shot, or his mouth for that matter.
Right.
All right, this is
this was fun.
Totally out of. This is not an athlete.
No, not an athlete. Not an athlete. We actually brought his drums downtown, set up in an alley.
I love it.
I used some smoke bombs. They're little baby smoke bombs. Taped them up to my lights with gels on them. I did fill in a little bit of smoke in post, so you could probably tell the difference. Mostly what's in the foreground. So everything that's up by the lights themselves is probably out of camera. I think the part right above his head over the sky, I think I added that in, and then a lot of the blue on the right I added in over on the right side, but not up by the light itself. So I find that it's easier to fake things if you start with something that's close to that, and then it's not as obviously fake. So this to me looks very realistic, but there is some Photoshop of the fog,
right?
More further away from the lights.
And that's a great tip. So you know that you have to replace something or change something or add something later in Photoshop, but it's better for you to try and fake something in camera first that you can change something later.
Yes. It also makes it more fun. So if I didn't have any fog on this, it wouldn't have been as much fun for this kid. But
sure,
to watch us light these and run around and light it and get out of the way.
Well, and I'm sure it adds to the experience of probably like, oh, this photographer was lighting off smoke bombs.
It's a lot about the experience. Yeah.
So is this a blue?
And they don't know that I didn't get it all in camera either. So
of course not. So is this a blue and a red smoke bomb, or is that gels?
No, they were gels.
Okay.
So I think we used like yellow, maybe just the lightest color that I had. They were little round ones. They weren't anything big. They didn't last very long.
Yeah.
I got them. I mean, who knows where I got them? Like a dollar store type thing. I just had them in a bag and we used them. So yeah, they didn't last very long. So we didn't have much time. But.
Cool. All right, we're getting close.
We have a couple more questions, and then we probably need to wrap up. We've been on over an hour already. So let me get a couple more questions to you, Tammy. Do you plan out most of your shots before you do the session, and locations as well? And do you do multiple for each senior?
Multiple locations for each senior?
I'm assuming that's what she means.
Okay. All right. So a lot of times I do have something in mind ahead of time. Sometimes I don't. For example, the shot that we just did, I had that planned. I was like, I'm going to put him in this alley. We had that all planned. You show up here in this alley with these. I'm going to use these gels and these smoke bombs, had that all. Sometimes things just hit me. So I try to leave myself open to, I read the environment. So I don't always, sometimes I'm in a new place, especially when I'm doing the sports pictures. So I'm looking at the ambient light, the sunlight, the background. And so sometimes I'll pull something together that I didn't have planned. I I do try to have at least a few things planned going in. Because I get a little anxious sometimes. I often don't know them, and if I have to force myself to be creative, I might bomb. So I have some fail safes that I know I can do, and then I have the freedom to create more. As far as the locations, a lot of kids will do 2 sessions. So they'll do their sports session at their stadium, and that's an add-on. It's an additional cost. And then we'll do their regular session somewhere else.
Oh, okay.
So that the track, the kid on the track that we were looking at before, we actually did his whole session at his school. So we did regular clothing. They had plenty of things that we could do there. But most of the time, if we do a lot of sports like the gymnast, and we do that as a totally separate session.
Okay.
Did that answer the question?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. And then she's also asking, how do you work in color harmony? Do you do that before or in post?
So most of the time it's before. I have them send me their outfits ahead of time, and I know the location, and we can always change outfits or change locations. I don't change color often in post, not that it hasn't been done. I do that for my parachute. I plan on that. I've occasionally done some color shifts, but I pretty much just try to do all of that straight in camera.
Awesome. That's all the questions for right now.
Okay.
Cool. All right, let's do one more, and then I should probably let you get out. I could keep going. All right, hang on. Let me go back to our presentation. Okay, we should be back now. Okay. There we go. All
okay.
right.
Yes. Okay. So for this one, this is another example of peeking the light into the frame. So this one is my my AD200 in the back with a gel on it. I often shoot with that gel, and it gives it a nice warm sunset glow. So it kind of looks like that's the sun kind of peeking out there back behind her. And then it would have been either my PLM or an Octobox as the main light. I kind of use them interchangeably sometimes. I tend to prefer my PLM, but often the Octobox, it's a lot more sturdy in the wind. I think I mentioned that earlier. So I'm not actually sure which of those I had.
Cool. And again, looks like a pretty simple image. Let's finish with this guy.
Okay.
And I love the bow tie, of course.
Yes. I thought of you when he showed me his outfits. I was like, yes, that bow tie's fabulous. So I loved the colors. I picked this wall and the lines and everything to go with his. I thought it coordinated well with his shirt, with that teal and navy. I thought worked well together. And then with the pattern on his shirt, it kind of played with the pattern on the wall.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get his reflection in there. So this again is the same thing with the light in the background. So that's a gel, and it looks like sunlight. You would not know. There's a building right there.
Yeah.
So there's no light coming from behind him at all naturally. And that really made a huge difference in this photo with that little bit of that highlight on his hair. It makes him stand out in the reflection also. It's just being able to separate him from the background.
That's awesome. Cool. All right, let me bring you back up on screen here. We'll finish up. Let's see.
And we needed to give away some more.
We do,
medals.
Right?
Okay.
Stop presenting. There you are. Okay. All right. All right, Jen, what do you think? How do you want to give these away?
I think Jeff O'Connell deserves one because he has asked more questions and anybody I've seen in a long time, which is awesome. We love.
Thanks, Jeff. Hey, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we have one more, right?
We have one more. Okay.
We have one more.
I'm going to let you give the last one away.
Who, me?
Tammy.
Let me give it away?
Yep.
I can't see who's on.
Well, you don't have to know who's on. Do you want to ask?
I just need to do a quiz. Okay. Like,
Jen, I promised I wouldn't put Tammy on the spot this
That's okay.
way.
I can do this. I can do this. I'm calm.
She's
Okay. So the first person to say what brand of lights I use.
Oh.
That's a good one.
Da, da, da. All of a sudden, everyone's shy.
I know, right?
Well, while we're waiting for the answer on that, Tammy, I want to thank you so much for helping, showing us your images today and taking the time. And we're up to an hour and 10 minutes now,
Okay.
plus the 5 minutes that we were live, and we really weren't live. So it's actually an hour and 15 minutes. And, you know, for those of you who don't know, she is also a mentor on the group at thegroup.com with 2 P's. And she'd be happy to help you figure out your lighting scenarios, go through this with you in a more one-on-one way. If you're struggling with light, Tammy is such a great person to do this with. And she's a great, not only such a creative artist and talented artist, but a really great technician when it comes to off-camera lighting. And if you are looking to take yourself to the next level, go on thegroup.com, find Tammy, hire her for a one-on-one session. She would love to help you. Super busy right now, and I'm sure she can find time to help you find your lighting and take it to the next level. So again, Tammy, thank you so much for being on here today.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to be here. It was fun. So did anybody answer my question?
Only people have won already, so I'm trying to
Oh, okay.
already won to participate. So, yeah, I think Noelle wants to upgrade her prize from a medal to an AD200.
Me too. Me too.
No, thank you, Tammy. I appreciate it, and we'll check back maybe on this post in a little bit and see if we've gotten somebody who's actually answered to us and already won.
Okay.
I think it's also.
We're way down.
I think it's also important to note, if you're looking to buy AD200s, why don't you guys tell us where we should be buying them from our Godox equipment from?
Oh,
yeah.
We want to support our friends.
Yes.
Go
yes,
Molight.
100%.
Absolutely. And actually, if you go to gomolight.com, he's got kits set up, and Tammy and I both have kits on there of our kits that we use on locations.
Oh.
Tammy's got her location kit. I've got an outdoor location kit as well as a headshot kit. So if you want to know what kind of lights we're using, you can just buy our kit, and it just makes it really easy to make sure you're getting what you need there.
Jen, would you mind putting a link to
Sure.
Michael's site in there? And maybe we should just save the last winner to the first person who buys something for Michael.
Okay.
All right. I think
tell Michael that Jason Group sent you.
Yes. Yes. Not Jen. Me.
Yeah. I don't want your credit, Jay.
All right. Jen, thank you so much for being with me once again as my host and answering all the questions and just being here. Tammy, once again, thank you. And we hope that you guys are well out there and, leave your questions. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We really want to kind of ramp this up a little bit more. And, again, thank you so much. Have a great weekend coming up and be well.
We'll see y'all next week.
We'll see you next week.
Bye, y'all.
Okay, I'm going to end stream now. There we go. Oh, not yet. Not yet.